Hi, we're going to be singing Blue Skies and Rainbows.
Blue skies and rainbows and sunbeams from heaven are all I can see. When the Lord's living in me, I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone since he promised me that we never will part. Tall mountains and valleys, the beauty surrounds me, all makes me aware of the one who made it all. I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone since he promised me that we never will part.
Hi friends! Before we start on our lesson today, we're going to talk about a few of the books of the Bible because we're going to want to learn them in order. So you repeat after me. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. So which of these do you think looks like it's in the wrong spot? That's right, Leviticus. It doesn't belong there at the bottom. Where should it go? Right in between Exodus and Numbers. Let's review the order again. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Those are the first 5 books of the Bible. So today we're going to be talking about loving one another. And we're going to be reading in John chapter 13. But before we do, I just want to give a little bit of background into the passage. So Jesus had spent the past few years raising up these men, his disciples, which is also another word for followers. And they really wanted to learn from Jesus. And Jesus was training them to spread the gospel. And we know that they went on to start the first century church. And Jesus is getting ready to go to the cross. And he's wanting to leave them with some really important truths. And here's what he tells them in verse 34. He says, "So now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples." So I imagine that these men were sitting there thinking about the scripture in Leviticus, that where God commands the people to love your neighbor as yourself. You know, loving each other wasn't this new idea. God has always said that he wanted us to love each other in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. But Jesus calls this a new commandment. Gotta wonder why. Well, for the first time, the world has gotten to experience God's love in the flesh. Here we have Jesus in human form. And this is so important because we see that Jesus' love is so different than anyone else's. Let's talk about how we've seen Jesus love throughout the Bible. So these disciples had walked with Jesus and they saw the way that he lived and loved. They saw Jesus feed the 5,000 with bread and fish, even though Jesus was already really tired that day. They watched Jesus show love and compassion to the widow. She had lost her son and Jesus raised him back to life again. The disciples trusted Jesus. We see this in how Peter even dared to walk on the water to Jesus. And trust is a great form of love. Jesus was the most important person on the earth, and yet he was so humble. He even washes his friends' feet. He served them and loved them in this way, and they were probably some stinky feet. Jesus taught the disciples many things, life lessons and wisdom from the Bible. Jesus gave his time and energy to others, to be a great friend and show love in this way. And most importantly, Jesus came to die on the cross to sacrifice his life so we could be reconciled to God. So those are just some of the few ways that we have seen Jesus' example of love. There are so many more examples we have of Jesus in the Bible showing love to others. And so what Jesus is telling us to do is to love like he did. Jesus' love was sacrificial. Jesus made it about others. He didn't make it about himself. Jesus was constantly serving other people. He looked for the needs that other people had, and he wanted to meet them. He had compassion. He was kind. He was trustworthy. He really went out of his way to show people love. And so we're commanded to love just like Jesus did. And sometimes it can be easy to love like other people do, but that's not what God calls us to do. So what I want us to do is to really think about ways that we can show other people God's love, because Jesus tells us in the scripture that the world will know that we follow him when we love like he does, which means the opposite is also true, that if we don't love like Jesus, then people won't know that we follow him. And so our activity this week is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to make a craft that's for us, but we're going to do something to show love to someone else. Now, that's up to you to decide who that is. And really, if we're loving like Jesus, something that we could do is really just stop, pause, and think, who do we know that needs some encouragement right now? After you pick the person, then you might want to ask yourself this question: what does that person need? Not what do I want to give them, but what does that person need? Here are some examples, though I'm sure you could think of plenty of other things. But maybe your mom needs some help cleaning up the living room or helping put away the dishes. Maybe your dad would like to spend some extra quality time with you. Maybe you have a neighbor that has seemed sad or who's just going through a lot, and maybe you could write them a nice card if your parents say that's okay. You might have a teacher or a friend that you might want to bake cookies for, or all kinds of things like that. But really, it's just a really good thing for us to do, to really just stop and think, how can I help meet the needs of other people? What can I do to sacrifice my time or my energy to help someone else? How can I be compassionate and kind, just like Jesus has been to me? So our memory scripture this week is John chapter 13, verse 34. It says, "So now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other." Let's read it one more time. "So now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other." Ask your parents to write down the memory scripture and see if you can memorize it before next Sunday. Have a good week, guys.